So thank you, Scott, from Thor, and Christian Eiroa from C.Gars, and a special guest, Tom Lazuka from Asylum. I'm going to pass over to Scott to do a bit of introduction, and we'll get the
Right, thank you very much, Paul. Can I ask you first of all to mute yourselves, because there's a bit of kickback.
Yeah, I'm doing that now, Scott.
Oh, is that you, Paul?
No, I can mute everybody.
I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. Right, thank you very much, Paul. And again, thank you to Anthony John from C.Gars. And if I can just say, that was a fantastic video you made the other day of smoking the Eiroa cigar. So the guys appreciated that. So thank you very much for that. That's brilliant. Tonight's edition of the C.Gars Virtual Herf, we have two fantastic guests. We have Christian Eiroa of Eiroa Cigars, and we have Tom Lazuka from Asylum. I'm sure Christian says he wished he was in the asylum, I'm sure. We're also joined by Hans Peter, who's called iPhone for the purposes of tonight, who's just casting a beady eye over us to make sure we do this properly. And I'd like to thank you for giving up your Thursday evening, and hopefully you enjoy it and you learn something. You'll enjoy the cigars, and if you've got a wee dram or whatever alongside you, I hope that helps the evening go even better for you as well. So what I'd like to do first of all, Christian, if I can, is we've got two Eiroa cigars that we're smoking tonight. Well, we might not smoke them both in an hour and a half, but we'll smoke one. I've suggested we start with the Colorado, and we also have the other 20-year partner, Maduro Prasado. Would you like to explain these cigars to everyone? Thinking behind them and the blinds, if you can, please, sir.
Thank you very much for hosting us, guys, and it really is a pleasure talking to you guys. And you know, I have to say, you know, the last couple of trips I've taken over with you, Scott, I really enjoyed myself, and I've gotten a completely different impression of your market, and it really is enjoyable. I find it a great challenge, and I'm especially pleased that today you're showcasing these two cigars, because they really are something very special to us. Let's start off with the name. The cigar was due out on 2015. It celebrates the 20 years that I've been in the business. I started back in June 28th, 1995. You know, I never really wanted to join the company with my father, but here I am, and I absolutely love the business from the moment I came in. So as I began to grow up in the industry, I realized that my tastes were different than my father's. And I liked the stronger cigars much more than I did the medium body. So my father came out with this. He grew the tobacco that was grown in his father's farm called La Victoria. And the problem he had with that crop, that the tobacco was too strong for what he wanted. And the tobacco was nothing really special. It was simply the old criollo, the local seed from Cuba back in the 30s and 40s. So he regrew that seed. When he found that the tobacco was too strong for him, he goes, "Hey, Christian, I have this blend. If you want it, you can take it." And we just changed one thing. We changed the binder on that cigar. And that is the traditional Eiroa First 20, which will be the darker one. I mean, you call them Maduro, but it's really just a natural. I mean, I don't like using the term Maduro very often. I do, but I don't like using it. And then the other one, yeah, the Colorado was really something that came out of my very first trip to Europe for the cigar business back in 1995 or 1996. I remember going to a cigar store, and the first time I saw a Cohiba cigar from being inside in the industry. And the Cubans always had this thing that they always get this Colorado. Colorado means reddish. So they always seem to ferment their tobacco to get that reddish color. And that's something that stuck in my head for many years, for decades. So when I finally had the chance with this new company, of course, when we were involved with Camacho was so crazy, and sales were always moving so quickly. We never really had the chance to age the tobacco slowly in the way that I would have liked to have done to get those colors. So what we did with the Colorado, I took the second priming and third primings of the Corojo seed and fermented them very slowly, very low water, very low temperatures, and we're able to get that reddish color. And what I was trying to do is I was trying to replicate what I seen 20 years earlier in 1996 when I did that Colorado. And the reason I box pressed that cigar is because box pressing lets you appreciate the wrappers a lot more. Even if the wrapper weren't that pretty, you know, if you took a lower quality wrapper and put it on a round cigar, you could immediately tell it wasn't very pretty. But if you box press that cigar, it'll look a lot prettier. So box press cigars tend to really accentuate the wrappers. So what we did was I wanted to box press because I wanted the color of the wrapper to really be appreciated and for people to enjoy it. Moreover, the boxes are also part of design. You notice we use that tissue wrap on the foot. I absolutely hate and detest a cellophane. To me, putting a cigar in cellophane is like taking whiskey, and instead of going into a barrel, you put it straight inside a bottle. The cigar does not develop. You know, when the cigars are being packed, and production and packed, they're manipulated. So cigars never really get a chance to settle down and marry each other and pick up the smell from each other. So we do that tissue wrap that's perforated. It also helps us with a barcode, and it definitely helps protect the cigars from the foot. And the next step that we did was, if you are able to ever open up one of those boxes, the smell is absolutely amazing, because we'll cut the wood the same day that we make the box, because I want that to be part of the experience. I want a customer be able to enjoy the full impact of that cigar, and we make that box flat on purpose so they're able to fit inside the humidors. And if somebody's able to buy a full box at a time, they can store the cigars inside the humidor. You know, the one thing that's probably the most painful to me, and I understand that's the way business has to be done, is I hate when I go to the store and I see the cigars are laying inside open boxes, because all the work that we did, all the smell, everything is completely gone at that point. But yeah, listen, that's the whole point behind Eiroa First 20. It really is a very refined cigar. It's for the guy that really knows how to smoke. He blows the smoke out of his nose. He drinks the cigar. I mean, he smokes the cigars with his whiskey. And it's not for the guy that buys 3-4 cigars a day and smokes a cigar when driving. This is for the guy who really wants to sit down, or gal that wants to sit down and relax. I say gal because my wife, that's what she smokes. She smokes both of those and the 40x4, the small one.
We're not rich enough in this country to smoke 3 or 4 cigars a day, Christian.
Oh yeah.
But am I right? Am I right that these are Honduran puros? Yes.
I'm very big on using tobacco only. Anything from Eiroa, all the tobacco is from us in Honduras, and all the tobacco we use is aged at least 4 years. The newer productions, something I'm coming out for next year, I'm actually going to start putting a lot more body in our cigars, and to do that, I'm going to age the tobacco a lot less. But yeah, everything we do, and I love making cigars just from their country of origin, almost exclusively.
Okay, thank you. So Tom, over to you now. So we've got the Asylum 13 Robusto. Where are you, Tom? You still with us? Yeah, sorry, couldn't see you. You're on mute. You're on mute.
There we go. How's that? Is that better?
You sounded better before.
Love you too, Scotty. So what we have today is, again, we're talking about the Asylum 13 Nicaragua. This was the original blend that we launched in 2012, July 2012. You know, it's a medium to full body. It's a Habano wrapper with Esteli jalapa fillers, so you definitely get some of the richness, and then you get some of that spice from it also. So it's a very nice medium to full body cigar that does not overpower you. You know, mostly 3-year age tobacco, and this is all Nicaraguan blend.
Okay, and where would it be made, Tom?
In Nicaragua.
Okay. So, thanks for that. And I guess you've all got your samplers, so I guess you're all going to try different cigars. Be interesting to get your feedback in the chat room as the evening goes on. And as you go through, if you've got any questions for the guys, rather than just interrupt, if you can put in the chat room, we'll come to you and get you to ask you your questions so that you can
Scott, sorry.
get involved.
Sorry to interrupt you. Normally, I understand that the pricing in your market is absolutely ridiculous because of the taxes. But normally, what I love, really the best way to do this is like the same way we would smoke cigars down in the factory, which you light 2 or 3 cigars at a time, and you're smoking all the cigars at the same time. That way, you're constantly going back and forth, and what you end up finding that you will eventually gravitate toward 1 or 2 cigars that you really like. And that's really how you make it very enjoyable. But again, I understand the tax situation over there and it's different. But here it's, that's normally how we would do it in the factory when you do a sampling and get the full feeling of the cigar speak. So only then you can compare. Matter of fact, there are times that it's happened to me. I've even thought about coming out with a crazy contraption, but I can't make it work. Is I found 2 cigars that are so good that I'll take the puff from one, then the other, and then do Retrejo both together. And it's absolutely incredible what that does. That's like inventing rum and coke, man.
So we need to find like a candlestick kind of holder with a hole. You can put 3 cigars in it.
I was working.
Yeah?
I was working on exactly that. And all I could think of, to be honest with you, was how Tom would make fun of me inventing it. And then when that thing would flop, Tom Lazuka, there would be no end to his bugging me. So that's really why I didn't do it.
Okay. Well, listen, well, I've got you talking then, Christian. Congratulations on your 25th anniversary this week.
Yes, sir. It was June 28th. It was the 25th.
June 28th. I'm a week out.
Yeah.
But, so listen, your family originally Spanish. They went to...
Yes, sir. My grandfather...
How did they end up in Honduras?
My grandfather was from Lugo in Galicia. And we believe he moved to Cuba in the late 1800s. And my grandfather was very special. He was 37 years older than my grandmother. So much of his history, was hard to really detect. So he was a boat captain. And he would transport tobacco in the Pinar del Rio area. And then eventually bought his first farm. And back then he would sell tobacco to the Oliva family, not the cigar people, the tobacco people. And when we had the whole issue with Cuba, my father left Cuba in 1958, first because he was being pursued by Batista. And they went back when they realized that they moved back to Cuba in 59 when Fidel took over. And then someone went and knocked on their door and told my grandmother. At this point, my grandfather had passed, so it was just my grandmother and 3 boys. And they went over, and my grandmother had to wear a patch on her arm and had to walk around the neighborhood spying on people. And that's when they said, look, we're leaving. And then they went to Tampa, and the Oliva family helped them out. My father at that point, he joined the Bay of Pigs invasion because he really wanted to, he wanted to do what he could. And fortunately, they never landed. But then when the embargo was established, Angel Oliva, who's really the patriarch of our industry, Angel Oliva started looking for tobaccos because they still needed to supply all the cigar factories in Tampa. So he did experiments in many different countries, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Dominican. And when he went to Honduras, he realized that the tobacco in Honduras was the most similar to Cuba because Honduran, the minerals of the soil, in the soil, produce this tobacco that has a lot of body to it. And even Lou Rothman, which is a very popular man here with J.R. Cigars, at one point came up with the expression that when cigar smokers grow up, they smoke Honduran cigars. So anyway, so my father was invited to go to process the tobacco. I think he was 24 years old at the time. In Honduras, he met my grandfather, my maternal grandfather. My grandfather was the rich Palestinian in town. He controlled all the businesses. Matter of fact, he had the first power plant in Danlí. So whenever he wouldn't get invited to one of the social club parties, he would just shut off the power, so no one could party at all. And so anyway. But, these stories I hear about Honduras, I mean, it would take a whole bottle of whiskey. My father went down there at a time when there was really, people had no needs. People would live off, they would grow corn, they would kill a deer and eat the deer. And so he had to figure out a way to motivate people. And the only way he could get people to go work in the farm was to get prison labor. And the only way to store tobacco was to go hire the working ladies of the night, because women have a much better gauge of color than we do. We don't see color as well as they do. That's why mostly in most sorting rooms, you're going to see women they're able to tell the rappers and cigars a lot better than men, which is something really interesting. So anyway, these were old cowboy days, and of course I was born in Honduras at that time.
You think you finished? So leading on from
I just had some background noise and didn't want you guys to be disturbed by it.
All right. So getting into the sort of 90s when the big cigar boom was on, I guess that's where you kind of got involved with Camacho, which is where you originally made your name. Yeah?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I'm not here to talk about Camacho, but I think it's important people understand where you've come from, Christian.
Yeah, we had Camacho. I started working in '95. I just got my master's degree and decided to go work with my father. And it was the cigar boom was going on at the time. And back then you couldn't get tobacco from anybody. So really my thing was, you know, and I always had this, when you go into a family business, you always have this challenge that you want to stand out. You want to make your mark. You don't want to be under anybody's shadow. And I realized that we couldn't get enough supply. And my father had the farms. He was growing like 1,300 acres. But our production was 18 million cigars, which was, it's a monstrous number. It's such a big number. So I had to find tobacco in different parts of the world, and I traveled everywhere. Of course, listen, I'm 22, 23 years old. To me, it's all an adventure. To be honest with you, I was looking for tobacco. I was looking for women. I found a lot more tobacco than women, and ended up with tobacco from Bangladesh, Philippines, Italy. I think French tobacco we bought. And you name it, we went there. We found it. And we bought Camacho in 1995 from the family. I think my father paid $30,000 for that brand. But at that time, we were also making the Saint Louis Rey, and we were also making the Romeo and Julieta here in the U.S. And I remember we made the first samples for Brad Weinfeld, who owned Saint Louis Rey at the time. And his first order was for 300,000 cigars. He came back to us 10 days later and changed the order to 2 million cigars. So that's how crazy the boom was. So of course, Camacho kind of took like a backseat. Camacho took a backseat to what we were doing. And it really wasn't a focus for us. Production was sold 18 months ahead of time. There really were really, really good times. It was fun for the people that were here in sales. It was tough for us that were in the factories. But it was nonetheless, at that age, I mean, you adjust to anything and really enjoyed ourselves. And I only regret that at that time when I was 22, 23, I really did not know how to smoke cigars because I didn't smoke my first cigar until I was 21. So I didn't really know how to smoke cigars. I never really appreciated the Saint Louis Rey for what it was. And that was made with one seed from this guy named Dr. Bertunas. It was called 214. And that seed just stopped yielding. It just stopped working eventually. You know, the blue mold and everything in Honduras destroyed it. You know, after the boom ended, that's when I was moved from production in Honduras. Probably boom ended November '97. So mid 1998, I was moved to the U.S. and I had to learn how to sell cigars, which I hated it then. I hate it now. But look at when you know, if anybody has their own business, they know when the water's up to here, you got no choice but to swim, man. You got to figure out what to do. And the boom was drastic. We went from 17 million cigars to only 6 million cigars in sales. And it took, it was in 1997 that my father started growing the Corojo seed, and the authentic Corojo seed, the real one from Daniel Rodriguez, none of this Fugazi stuff. And, you know, we ended up, we put on a cigar the first time September '99, did a test with Dave at Two Guys, and we launched that cigar at the trade show in the year 2000. And I remember I was so worried, man, because we had two Camachos coming out. Back then we had this old guy named Sal Fontana. None of you guys met him, just obviously Tom and Hans Peter got to meet him. So I remember we come back from the trade show and we sold out instantly. But back then the retail price was $195 to $395, and the other one was $295 to $495. Those were the retail price. Imagine how cheap cigars were. So I said, Sal, we screwed up, man. He goes, why? We sold these cigars too cheap. He goes, let me come up with a solution, kid. He comes up to my office 20 minutes later. He goes, problem solved. We're sending out a fax. Imagine a fax. We're sending out a fax right now that we had a misprint in and we raised the prices $1 on every cigar. And the rest is history, man. You know, we asked Cigar Aficionado many times to cover the story for us, that we revived the Corojo seed. They wouldn't do the story. So I pulled the $120,000 a year I was giving them. And I said, you know, I'm just going to invite every single customer I have down to Honduras. And that's what we did. We started bringing every single customer we had down to Honduras to really explain the tobacco, the cigars. And that really was a game changer for us, man. And at the time, you know, our only competition were really the Dominican cigars that were mild, a lot of Connecticut wrap cigars. So when we come out with a cigar, what Corojo does, it gives you a lot of body with a very sweet finish and no aftertaste. That's the one thing that really set us aside. We just couldn't make enough cigars. But that really is. And of course, you know, I met the guys at Davidoff in I think 2006. You know, we sold the company in 2008. That's where I met Hans Peter during that time. And that too was really a real good experience. I had a lot of fun with these guys. And they're very nice people. I learned a lot about branding and marketing from them. But you know, at 36, I was nowhere close to retiring. And as nice and as well as they treated me, there were still things that I wanted to do. You know, there were challenges that I wanted to face, and I knew that I could do things differently and one thing or the other thing. So in 2012, we started this new company, and I brought Mr. Lazuka along. I begged Mr. Lazuka to come along. So Tom Lazuka's like, wait a minute. So you're telling me you want me to leave one of the best cigar companies in the world to come work for you, take a pay cut, and do what now? I said, Tom, yeah, man, that's exactly what I'm asking you for. He goes, okay, let me think about it, man. So he took his time. I'm not saying he jumped on it. He took his time.
Well, I think that's really interesting. You did a deal with Davidoff and you inherited Hans Peter. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, Tom, how did you get involved in the cigar industry, and how did you guys hook up together?
So, you know, I was actually in the restaurant business. I was part owner of a chain of pizza places, local pizza places in the Detroit, Michigan area. And I had sold them and got out of that business. And two of my good friends were in the business working for other companies and said, you should get in this business. And I went to work for Colibri Lighters in Michigan in 2000. And then a couple of years into that, I had met someone from Camacho, Salim Hanano, and he was asked me, hey, we're starting to look where the Camacho brand was really starting to take off at that point in 2002. And they had were looking for salespeople. So I went down and interviewed, and they offered me a position. And that was the first time I had met Christian. And so I took the job, and I made probably 3 months into the job. He was probably wanting to get rid of me at the time. I was learning. I didn't, you know, I had smoked cigars, but I didn't have a lot of experience in it. But he stuck with me, and obviously, so I've been with Christian through Camacho, through the sale to Davidoff, and you know, when he called me about the opportunity to start this company together. You know, it was something I had to really think about, but it was something that I'm glad I did. You know, it's a pleasure to grow something from the very beginning, from the roots to the finished product, and see where our company has gone over the little over 8 years now that we've had it.
Very good. So Asylum's your baby.
Yes, sir.
What was the thinking behind the name?
Well, you know, in the beginning, we had another gentleman involved, and so he was the kind of big bearded guy, and our approach to this was, you know, the Eiroa, the CLE lines, and you know, were originally going to be kind of like our 25-year-old scotches, and Asylum was our Jack Daniels, right? Kind of built for speed, price points, and things like that. So, you know, it happened very quickly. You know, we really we were in Honduras, and Christian said, I think we should go to Nicaragua and look at some tobacco. So we ended up in Nicaragua, and you know, it came together very quickly. You know, the Asylum 13 band that we have on the cigar that you have was originally a foot band. And then we ended up with two different blends, the Asylum Premium, and we ended up taking the foot band and making this the band on the Asylum 13. And it just really took off. You know, I approached Christian about doing large ring gauge cigars, and he looked at me like I was somewhat needed to be in an asylum, but he told me this was the worst idea he ever heard. but he was going to do it just to say he told me so. And 8 years later, we're selling more and more 70 and 80 ring gauge cigars. And so I get to say, I just get to chuckle inside every day a little bit.
Well, I can remember when Hans Peter approached me to bring in the Asylum Goliath.
Yeah.
And then he told me it was a 6x80. Yeah. And
Yeah,
it was like,
yeah.
oh my God. So we had to forklift the cigar into the warehouse because it just weighed a ton. And I said, I was so skeptical. But you know what? It actually sells. And I was really surprised. I mean, in the UK, that retails for over £44. That's like
How much?
$50.
Cheese and crackers. Yeah.
Exactly. Because our taxation is...
Do you know that cigar weighs almost exactly twice as two 60x6s?
Yeah, it's just crazy. So when I priced the cigar, I was thinking, there's no way this cigar will sell. The Hercule, the Goliath, but they do. It just hands up to you, you know. People love them. And 6x80, I personally have never smoked one. My wife says I've got a big mouth, but I don't know.
I think you could do it, Scotty. I think you can.
No, hey, Scott, you know there's one that I smoke, which is the in the Asabache, we make a little 70x4, but it's box pressed. That one I can smoke. And
Okay.
obviously we sit there, we sample them. When we tell you we sample cigars, we only smoke about 1 inch or 2 inches. And you know, we'll go to the factory and we'll smoke 15 or 20 of those. We'll start
Okay.
15 or 20 of those a day, and we'll do it. But to smoke normally, yeah, the little 70x4 by Asabache is really a good cigar because it's box pressed and you don't feel that it's a 70.
Yeah. But what we'll do now, Raoul, are you around? What we'll do is we'll have a quick minute break and we'll show you what Tom gets up to at trade shows. A bit of Asylum. So over to you, Raoul. Are you sharing host?
Yes, got it.
Cool.
Oh wait, give me 1 second.
We just read your host, Raul.
Are you in Honduras already?
He's punching his ticket, man. He's punching his ticket.
Oh, he is
Oh,
indeed.
Wait. Ready?
Big ring gauge. It's always the Asylum is big ring gauge. It's always been like that. That's it. People think Asylum. They don't think of a Robusto. They don't think of a 50x5. They think of a big cigar. I remember when we first started. He was telling me. I remember that day. You were just like, you know, if I was going to start a company and I thought like 70 ring gauge cigars called Asylum, I would have thought it never would have worked. But we've been very fortunate. Yeah.
So there you go. We wanted to prove to you all there's an 8x80 out there. If the Goliath is $50, God knows what price 8x80 would be. $100. Yeah, but that's brilliant. So Tom, I read somewhere for the Asylum brand, and they'd tell me if this is accurate, that basically you went to Nicaragua and you wanted enough tobacco to make 1 million cigars.
Yeah, when you sit down to blend cigars, people always ask the question after you come out, hey, did you did you blend your masterpiece per se? And you go with these thoughts of, using these rare tobaccos and different things to create these flavors. But the reality of cigar making is you really have to look at how many you want to sell first. Like how are you going to provide those cigars if you can sell them? And so when we went to Nicaragua, we asked them, just bring us tobaccos that you can, whether we were going to sell 1 million or not the first year was a whole nother story. But it was, don't bring us wrappers, binders, or fillers that we can't make 1 million with the first year. So then we started blending from those. And so they started making the cigars out of the tobaccos that we knew we could get the production out of. Because again, this was always meant to be kind of our Jack Daniels, our everyday cigar for people. The price points were fantastic when we first launched the cigars in the US. They were the Robusto. We came out with a 50x5, a 60x6, and a 70x7 on the original launch, and they were $5, $6, and $7 US. So they were very reasonably priced. And I think it really changed the market. You've seen a lot of companies come out with, they were 50 count boxes. People started coming out with 50 count boxes at $5 to compete at that price point. So it really did make a change in the marketplace, because we weren't the first people to do 70s. There were a couple other brands in the market doing it, but they weren't supplying them. So when I was traveling the country, I was seeing these cigars, but they were always empty. And I would ask the retailers, do those really sell? Yeah, but I can't get them. So, when I said to Christian, listen, I'm going to do, I want to do 70 ring gauge cigars. Like you said, he looked at me like I was out of my mind. And I said, well, I already ordered the band, so I need you to order the molds and let's do it. So we did it. And, but yeah, the idea is you've got to put some thought into production, because if you can't supply it, you end up not being, you kind of lose your spot in the marketplace. And so we were able to get that place and hold it very well. And 8 years later, we are selling more 70s every year over year. And that market is still a growing segment for us.
So when you make a 6x80 or a 7x70, how many leaves of tobacco is in that cigar, Tom?
Well, I think we have, there's 9 in the 70x7, 9 filler leaves. And then there's 11 in the 80 ring gauge cigars.
Wow. Wow.
So
that's incredible.
We thought about doing a 3-pack and call it the quarter pounder, because 3 of them actually weigh a quarter of a pound. But we thought McDonald's might have had an issue with us, but we should have did it anyway.
Well, we could have classed it as a food product in the UK and got a half-price meal out of it this week.
Yeah.
But, wow. So, and Christian,
Yes,
your
sir.
specialist tobacco. Tell us about the speciality of your Corojo tobacco.
The Corojo tobacco.
What makes it so uber for you?
So, let's try and get Raul to mute the phone. He's nearby. Hey, yeah. So, Daniel Rodriguez had a farm called Santa Inés del Corojo, and this was in Puerto Bajo in Cuba. And what he would do is he would take the pick of the crop every year and just regrow that seed over. It was the same old traditional Cuban seed, but eventually after X amount of crops, maybe a decade, the seed started taking its own flavor out of that one farm. And what it would do is it gives you a lot of body with a very sweet finish, right? And no aftertaste. That Cuba ended up discontinuing that seed. That's really the seed that made Cuban cigars popular in the 40s and 50s. And eventually what happened was when we got hit in the Caribbean with something called blue mold, which is an airborne fungus, that seed was eliminated by Cuba back in 1987. And they started developing all these new hybrids with Seita and Tabacalera at that point. Of course, now they're Altadas or Imperial, whatever the hell they're called now. So, we were able to regrow that seed without using the hybrids. And the risk was always that we get hit, the Corojo gets hit by everything. And there's something so interesting about this blue mold that it actually develops an antibody against all the antifungal products that you can get. And it likes that London weather, that horrible, drizzly, cold weather. When you get that, the whole crop goes in about 5 or 6 days. It's all gone. So we're very careful about it. We can only grow a certain time of the year. And the plant, 1 acre, only gives about 1,500 plants and like 30% wrappers. Whereas if you do a Criollo 98, which is what everybody else is growing, gives about 2,300 pounds, and you'll get 50 or 60% wrapper out of that. But there's no replacing the taste of that Corojo seed. It's awesome, and we're very careful about it, very protective about it. We'll try to do experiments here and there, but we like the basic stuff. I'm not a big fan of the hybrids. Actually, I even almost resent the fact that Criollo 98 exists. It's great seed, great tobacco. The fact that it's so good is what makes it so bad, because now everybody grows it. So you pick up any cigar, and most every cigar out there is 80 or 90% with that tobacco, whether it's grown in Nicaragua, Dominican, Ecuador, wherever they grow it, they're using the same seed over and over again. And I think that's one thing that really sets our blends aside. And especially in the Eiroa and the CLE lines, you're always going to get that signature flavor. The only one in the whole line that doesn't have Corojo tobacco is the dark CL, the Eiroa First 20, the dark one. Everything else will have that Corojo signature.
How many cigars are you selling, making these days, Christian, compared to what you had in Camacho days? That was the moment. But nowadays, it's all about quality.
You know, and I can repeat this because Davidoff did publish it at one point. So when we sold Camacho, I think we're over 11 million cigars a year. And now this year, we'll probably do about 3.5 million cigars. And the big difference now, when we hit 6.5 million, that'll be the end for us. We're not going to keep growing past that point. I don't want to be in operation like Camacho was, you know, because what ends up happening is that if you're going to make a cigar, so let's go back to the example you mentioned a minute ago about making 1 million cigars. Let's say you want to use 5 different tobaccos in your blend, and this one, you can make 800,000 cigars, but if you add this one, it only gives you enough for 200,000 cigars. So what you do is you end up eliminating number 2, and then you focus on the other leaves. So we want to keep our production small because I want to make sure that the blend that we make is actually the blend that we keep. You know, there's an old saying from this guy, Sal Fontana: cigars need to be consistently good or consistently bad. Just make them consistent. So we always want to make sure that we kept the same cigar throughout, and that really is what has made a big difference, I think, with this company. We don't want to be that big anymore, like Camacho. We're not driven by money, Scott. We're driven by altruistic things that we want to do. We want to be able to help the people that have worked with us for many years. Of course, look, you got to make a profit to stay in business, right? But you know, we got a breast cancer center that we're helping out with in Honduras. We're just now doing the whole engineering study. We're going to go full solar. We'll probably be 70-80% solar power.
You're preempting one of my questions here, Christian.
Oh, yeah? Sorry, sir. Sorry.
What I wanted.
Slow your roll.
You know, what I wanted to do is actually show people your factory and your farms, because so far I've been fortunate enough in my life to go to all the other countries bar Honduras. But when I've seen the video, this particular video of your plantation and your farm, it's just stunning. So, Raul, if I can ask you to roll the film, please.
La montaña.
Vamos pues, soy hondureña con mucho orgullo. Vamos a ver. Buenísimo.
No te digo nada.
Wow. That's superb, Christian. Absolutely fantastic. And so, can you just summarize what we've just been watching, please?
Yeah, you know,
I mean, and tell me, what are those huts? They're not curing barns, are they? Or?
yeah, the curing barns, and they're
Yeah.
climate controlled. They're in Spanish they call them the calfrisas. They're all climate controlled. You control the moisture. You know, tobacco needs to sit for no less than 45 days curing.
Yeah.
And when you have the controlled moisture and controlled heat, you're able to cut that process down to about 35, 36 days because our temperature will vary 4 or 5 degrees overnight.
So most curing barns I've seen, Christian, are basically they've got slots in the side, or they've got fires at the side, or you don't have anything
you know,
like that.
One argument that all right, the technology that we have available in our countries is much superior to the technology available in other countries. You know, we have soil rotation. You know, I'm always very careful with the subject, you know, because it's a very touchy subject. You know, we got involved with Bayer many years ago, almost 20 years ago. And because I've always had this thing about, you know, diseases and germs and contamination. And we started a very clean process. So Bayer, the German, you know, of course, maybe in Europe, they're known as an agricultural company. Here in the US, it's funny because they're known as the aspirin people, right? So they're a human health company. And they really got involved in helping us out as far as keeping our farms to a level that we have now certified zero impact on the environment. We measure the soil, we measure the minerals, we measure the water content. You know, when you drive up in your car gets fumigated. Tractors, when they go from one field to another, we have a cleaning station. It's just, and this is the product of my father's life's work, which my father, you ever get to meet him, Scott, he's a guy, my father has no clue how much money, how much things cost, how much he sells. He has no clue. He just operates his farm and wants to make sure that he has plenty of funding for the farm. But he's passionate about his farm. And when we move over to the factory, and what you saw now, I don't know if we have the clip now on the post-COVID. You know, hopefully we'll have it. If not, we'll definitely.
Yeah, we're going to just show that in a wee bit.
So, you know, we always had this thing about cleanliness at the factory. I remember visiting one of my mentors, to me, the best manufacturers that I ever lived in this business were Rolando Reyes and Estelo Padron, which is not the Padron guy, but Estelo Padron used to run the Villazon factory. He used to make Hoyo and Punch here in Honduras. And Estelo Padron was very clean with his factory. And I remember seeing that operation, and I couldn't. The day I get back, it just so happened, this is back in 1995. The day I get back, and the first thing I see in my factory is the guy smoking a cigarette, and the ash is falling on the blended cigar. I said, guys, do me a favor. You guys want to smoke cigarettes inside the factory? Everybody, please bring an ashtray. This is like on a Tuesday. Next Monday, nobody had an ashtray, so I said, you know what? Smoking cigarettes is completely prohibited in the factory. So what do? And we had a strong union at the time. What they do is they all get together and they all bring candy. So now they're sucking on candy all day long and they're leaving the candy wrappers on the floor. I said, okay, no more candy in the factory, because, you know, back then the union situation in Honduras has always been an issue. So my factory manager just wanted that fight, and he used this, so it was this. So okay, no more eating. And then we had this little, it's called nance in Honduras. Basically, it's a fruit that you suck, and then, you know, the seed is about this big, and then they would throw that on the floor. Anyway, no more cleaning, no more eating in the factory, and it just turned into a decade-long process where we started improving the hygiene of our operation, to the extent that, and even in the cigar boom, another thing that we did, we're the first people to do it. You know, Hondurans have a drinking problem, and what they would do is, on Monday they just wouldn't show up because they were hungover. So we changed a couple things about that. We changed payday in Honduras to Tuesday or Wednesday. Because if you get paid on Friday, you get drunk on Friday. You get paid on Wednesday, Tuesday or Wednesday, you can't get drunk. And we also opened up our own clinic inside the factory. And at that point, because now they didn't have the excuse that they're out there visiting people. But then I started thinking, you know, the first week or the second week, we had a false positive for tuberculosis in the factory. And that got me thinking, man, imagine if this guy really had TB. Now you're infecting all the coworkers, number one. Number two, you're infecting the product. So the healthcare became a big issue for us, and it's a top issue for us, for our workers. You know, people need to make a living, and we need to provide a safe and comfortable environment for these people to work in, and for us as well, and for our customers to consume our products. These are things, you put these things in your mouth. If I visited factories that, Scott, I wouldn't touch, I don't even dare sit down in those factories, only because I got this weird thing, right? So, but if that's how the factory was, imagine what the production was. So I always had that in mind. You know, what, you know, is it a piece of food, right? You know, would I trust a bread maker under those same conditions? So it's just something that began to become part of our culture always. So, and hopefully, and it's obviously when you're a lot smaller, it's a lot easier to keep. But even Camacho was to those levels. It was super clean. I mean, one of the big, well, I don't know if I can share it, but anyway, that was one of the things with Davidoff, and it was always the thing with Dr. China. And just whatever. I probably can't share it, so we'll leave that story there.
I've had the pleasure of meeting that gentleman, I think. No, it's impressive. It looks really impressive. And it's your own farms, Christian, so you do the whole vertical chain, box factory, everything, yeah?
Yeah, we do the box factory. Yeah, we want to make sure that we buy from controlled forests, and now we're really investing in our technology now, see if we can do something about the cedar consumption. You know, when we buy the wood, we see the permits. I don't know if those permits are real, or if there's some underhanded stuff going on. I try to do as much as I can, but I do understand that the corruption in a country like mine is systemic. So people just have to cut that corner because it's a lot more fun, I guess. So we're finding ways to really cut down the amount of consumption of wood that we're using. I'm constantly figuring out how to make things better. And, you know, added to that is we're just starting now this year, which got completely blocked by COVID. But I'm trying to do a 1,300 hectare replanting. And we're starting this year. I think we got the first, wow. I think it's 7 or 8 hectares that we're going to start this year. And we're going to grow. Originally, I was thinking about doing cedar trees. The problem with cedar is that when they grow 20, 30 years from now, someone's going to break into that forest in that area. They're going to cut the trees down, and they're going to knock it down. So we're probably just going to grow a lot of fruit trees. And what the fruit trees do, they feed the local populations, and people tend to protect them. And I'm going to start, I mean, it sounds funny. Hans Peter laughs every time I tell him, but we're going to start breeding birds and parakeets and just release them. See if we can start bringing some natural wildlife over to the, I'm sure kids are going to shoot them down with slingshots, but we'll just keep making more birds, man. The more we can.
And when you've cultivated the land, do you plant anything else in the soil, Christian?
We do. No, Bayer has found that there are certain minerals that tobacco leaves behind. The sorghum, which is a type of corn, sorghum is used for cattle feed, and they absorb these minerals that tobacco leaves behind that Bayer has determined that really help us with the with making tobacco that is free of these minerals. Whatever it is. Look, you know, I have to admit that we have all this data, and if I were a chemist, I could give you the details, but you know, there's so many freaking minerals inside tobacco that we just don't know what to do with that information. But you know, we do follow Bayer's advice very closely, and we'll do that because the soil does need to rest for a year or 2 years, and this will help out. Originally, we thought about doing corn, and we did do corn. The problem with corn was that people would break into the farm and they would steal your corn. So then you can't harvest anything, and when you harvest the corn, you basically, in essence, you stole the nutrients. You can't plow it and put it back into the system. And we really couldn't go out there and how can I say it? I mean, we can't call the police on somebody for stealing food. So it just created a conflict. So then we just stuck to cattle feed, sorghum, and different things to protect it. We also have a bunch of lamb that my father likes, and they're good for the soil as well.
How often do you go down there?
I try to go once or twice a month to go down there. We have a very, very good team of people, Scott. You know, and one mistake that we always make as family-owned businesses, and especially cigar operations, we tend to want to be involved in everything, and we don't do a good job at developing the next generation. And that's one thing that I want to do. You know, I really want my kids to be in the business. I want Tom's kids to be in the business. We have a very young team here at the office. Unfortunately, they're all millennials, which drive me up a wall. But nonetheless, you know, we're trying to build a company. You know, brands, you know, the main thing that we're doing differently is brands have to live for 30 to 50 years. And that's what I learned from the guys at Davidoff.
No.
You know, brands have to outlive us. That's why it's not a big issue in Europe, but here's a huge issue. We don't allow discounting. We don't do anything that affects the brand negatively in any way. We are very protective of our brand, and the results have shown. Even now during COVID, everybody just started, you know, throwing the house out the window trying to sell their cigars, and we just kept our position, and it worked out really well for us.
Wow, no, very good. So, do you produce for anyone else, Christian?
I'm producing some cigars now for a friend of ours, Robert Wright. He makes something called Pura Sol. We're doing something from, you know, we have a partnership with Edgar Oil, Osaka, and EH. But that's pretty much it. I don't like the private label business very much. I do make something under our brand for the catalog companies here in the U.S. For Famous, we do something for JR Cigars, and I think we're working on something for Cigars International. But no, I don't like to make for other people. Rolando Reyes was always very much against that, and Orlando Padron was always very strong against that as well. And I've taken their advice. You know, you can't really, you can't eventually do an honest job for those people, because you're always faced with dilemmas, and you're tempted. And, you know, you're going to be faced, hey, I only have X amount of tobacco for this. Am I going to use it for my customer that I gave him or her my word? Or I'm going to use it for myself, which I need to feed my employees and my family and all that. So we just avoid the whole conflict altogether. You know, we're small enough. Plus, the fact that we're small doesn't make our costs very cheap either. So we're not the most inexpensive operation in the world out there. But we're not looking to be volume people. We're looking for we have different goals with this company, Scott.
Absolutely. So, talking about your cigars, you seem to favour, or certainly in Europe, we see more of the box press cigar. Is that something you prefer yourself?
Hey, Scott, you know, the real answer is I don't know, man. I don't know. Honestly, when I go down there, if something interesting happens, and I've never been able to explain. Hold on one second. Something happens to me when I go down there, and I'll go with an idea in mind. For example, I have a trip pending now to finish off the Asylum 8, the CLE 25th anniversary, and a new Eiroa I want to work on for next year. And so I have some preset ideas in mind. It's not until I smell the tobacco in that bulk, when I go and I smell it, that I really start developing the ideas of exactly what I want. Yeah, and you know, we did do the experiment with something. I don't know if you guys have it in the UK yet. The medulla oblongata. This is an idea I had, which was under Asylum. It's the exact same cigar, but then we took the round ones and we pressed them, and we put them next to each other in the box, and we asked customers to buy two at a time and smoke them. To me, I feel a difference in that cigar. I prefer the box pressed, only because, dude, I don't know if it's psychological. I don't know if it's the airflow. I don't know what it is. I'm sure if we asked a German guy or maybe a Swiss guy, they will give us a pretty detailed theory with science applied to it. Me, I just don't know. I do feel the difference, and that's why I ask guys to do the same thing, and try it, man, because you got to have fun with what we're doing. So no, there's no preset idea whether the cigars are gonna be round or box press, Scott.
Okay, so tell me about La Vittoria, or Vittoria.
Victoria, yeah, that was my grandfather's farm. And my father was able to regrow that seed. And the tobacco there's what makes a tobacco so different is the fact that nobody has grown it for 50 or 60 years. But there's nothing. I mean, you look at it. There's nothing really. I mean, it sounds terrible, right? My description's horrible, and definitely not a copyright guy. There's nothing really spectacular about the tobacco, but it's just different. The flavor, and I can't really describe it. And I haven't been able to yield wrapper out of it. It's a good tobacco for filler, but I haven't been able to yield any wrapper out of it, only because of the texture of the leaf itself. But it does give you that body. And as much as my father tried, he could never get that tobacco to give him a mild taste. But it's really good. I mean, we'll grow it like every 2 or 3 years. He'll grow a batch for me for these cigars.
You keep that more for the family, do you not? Or
say again?
Or do you sell that? Do you sell, or do you keep that mainly for the family?
No, we keep it mainly for the family. We're currently not selling tobacco anymore. We had a contract with Davidoff that expired in 2018, and we no longer continue selling tobacco to them. You know, once we started ramping up, and my father ramped up with his factory, we just didn't have enough tobacco for them. Okay. So it you know, we weren't able to do it.
Okay, Tom, Christian, thank you. I'm very conscious that Tom's probably fallen asleep now. I apologise for keeping you sitting waiting there. What craziness have you got planned for Asylum, my friend?
Well, obviously Christian mentioned a little bit, this past year we launched the Asylum 7, which was our 7-year anniversary cigar. What made that cigar special is that it was the first time we took a Nicaraguan wrapper and put the Honduran binder and filler in it. So we have always kind of kept the countries separate. So what made that cigar unique in flavor was that it had a Nicaraguan wrapper with Honduran binder and filler.
So still made in Nicaragua, Tom?
Pardon me?
You still making that in Nicaragua?
No, it was made in Honduras.
Right, okay.
So just with we brought the wrapper over. This year we're getting ready to launch the Asylum 8, which is our 8-year anniversary cigar. Christian likes to use an analogy that we're, when you're loading something and you get to that 99%, but that last 1% takes a while, and it's just we haven't been able to get to Honduras and finish the blend yet, but we're very close. The packaging's ready. So that will be our 8th anniversary cigar will be coming out. We come out with it in a 1118 shape, which is kind of, I call it the pregnant Toro. It's a little fatter through the middle. It's a shape that I don't believe anyone else makes in the world. And then we also are going to do it in the 770 for that, for the big ring gauge smoker, because that's what we do.
So if you've got the 7 and the 8, where did the 13 come from?
Can
I not count?
that was a very random thing very quickly, because when we were getting ready to launch the cigar, it had another name, and a hookah tobacco company disputed our trademark. So very quickly we had to kind of change gears, because we had to get the bands done. We had to get everything done very quickly, and the other partner at the time said 13. That's my, that's his lucky number. So he said 13 it is. They can't dispute that. We're going to go with Asylum 13. So it was a very quick thing.
All the best ideas just usually, were you in a bar at the time?
No. That's how we got Ogre.
That's where we get most of our good ideas from.
Yeah, that's how the Ogre came about.
Right. Okay. I was going to ask you about that. How did that come about?
It was funny. We were talking about it. A good friend of mine named Ron English is a college football coach. He coached at University of Michigan, and then he got the head coaching job at Eastern Michigan University, and today he's now at the University of Florida as the defensive backs coach. But Ron, for years, we would do a charity event that, we would donate cigars or make something specific for him at his auctions when we had Camacho. And when Christian and myself started this company, Ron said, listen, I would like you guys to do something for me. And another friend of mine, we were goofing around one day at his house, and he had tobacco, and we kind of came up with the idea. So I came to Christian. I said, listen, I want to make, this barber pole cigar, this Candela wrapper with the Habano, and for Ron, I just want to make like 10 boxes of them. And Christian looked at me and goes, no, let's just launch let's just launch it as a brand. And so we were sitting again. We were actually in a cigar bar having drinks. It must have been 2 o'clock in the morning, and so we started coming up with names like Shrek, and we said, okay, we might get sued for that one. So we just like Ogre, that's it. And that's how quickly it came about. It was really going to be 10 boxes of cigars for Coach Ron. The Eastern Michigan University's colors are the black and the green, so it fit. And here we are today selling a whole bunch of them again. So, and Coach Ron didn't believe that we actually created that cigar for him. He actually was in the office not too long ago with Christian, and he's like, I always thought Tom was just giving me a line of BS, and he's like, no, we actually did kind of develop it for you, and then we just launched it as a brand nationwide.
Oh, that's brilliant. So you do your YouTube videos with pairings. What would you pair with an Asylum? What would you recommend?
You know, for me, again, you know, the
And by the
Asylum
way,
13.
Tom, don't mention Jack Daniels for a third time, man. These guys are whiskey snobs.
Remember where I'm from, Tom. You're offending me.
Yeah, sorry. I just meant volume. You know, volume of cigar. But you know, for myself, I've always kind of leaned towards a Kentucky bourbons. Over the past few years, I've really started to develop my palate for some scotches. I tended to go with, to me, I don't like to overpower with something that's too peaty, because there's a lot of power and spice in those cigars. So I like to go with something a little more floral, like a Macallan 12, that kind of doesn't, you know, overpower the flavor. So for me, I truly like with the Asylum 13 Nicaragua, I enjoy more of a floral scotch with that.
No, very good. And I was asked a silly question, but there's no such thing as a silly question. Where did you get the box count of 22? There's a random question that you've probably not been asked before.
Well, you know, the European market's a little different, right? So in the U.S. market, we have 50 count boxes on Asylum. So what we did, you know, the reason for that, again, we're going back to the Bayer certification and trying to use less wood. You know, we do them in refill bundles. So if customer orders 50, it's only one box, and then they can refill bundles, and so we're using less wood and from sustainable forests and things like that. Why the European market? We went with certain count boxes. It's just usually it just falls to, okay, we got a box this size. How many fit in that box? 22. Okay, go with it. You know, it's not real scientific.
That's 100% Hans Peter, man.
Yeah.
Hans Peter's the only one who can give you that answer. Nobody knows.
So I'm surprised there's...
Yeah.
They must be in 22 for Europe. So, there is no logic for that answer, Scott.
I'm surprised it's not 22 in a petite Corona just to really fill the box.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a quick story about what it's like working with a Swiss. And I remember years ago, it was the first brand I launched after they Davidoff buys a company, so I launched the Camacho, Connecticut. Basically, what I wanted to do, we had Dylan Austin and Matt Booth. They come up with the Room 101, and they spent an ungodly amount of money launching a cigar. I said, guys, this is how you launch a cigar. So I did the Camacho, Connecticut, which Tom actually suggested that for years. I never really paid attention to him. Anyway, so we launched that Camacho, Connecticut, and that thing just sells like crazy. So I get an email from Hans Peter. Yeah, Christian, please, can you please share the formula that you use to calculate the price? I go, it's no formula, man. I just think that's what the cigar is worth. And then we work it backward, and hopefully it fits. Yeah, okay, but listen, you know, you must. And they had charts and everything and Davidoff to calculate pricing. I go, listen, man, what can I tell you? Don't worry, I'm not gonna launch anything else. I'm not filling out this stupid form. So
it's like the first question somebody will present a cigar to me, Christian, will say, this is the price, and I go, but what's the weight?
Yeah, right.
Tell me the weight, and they'll say, no, I'll take 10 cents off. I go, no, take a gram off, take 2 grams off. You know. So the first question I always ask is, what's the weight? Because then I can, and you know George Souza from used to be Alec Bradley. He reckons I should have been like a guy for guess the weight, because I could pick up a cigar and go, that's about 17 gram, yeah, and so on, and I could work out the duty in my head just by picking up the cigar.
Hey, Scott, but you mentioned that, but that's really the first step in quality control in the factory. When the guys are walking around, they're constantly picking up the cigars, and then you feel the weight, and the weight tells you. And cigars vary. This is why the factories today, I can't imagine a factory now that's not climate controlled. Because when we are in rainy season, cigars tend to be a lot heavier, and they get plugged because the bunchers, you know, they lose the tact, right? Because the tobacco feels differently in your hands. So it really is a big issue if you don't have that climate control inside in your building. The first step is always to weigh the cigars with your hands.
But we see that, Christian, because we have a bonded warehouse, we have to weigh a sample of every range that comes in every shipment. So we can tell pretty quickly if we see a 13.8 and a 17 in the same. We're like, holy shit, yeah? We go straight on to the manufacturer. It doesn't happen very often, to be fair. But we then have to pay the duty based on the average weight of what comes in. And sadly, customs only give us so many days to do that. Otherwise, we could leave it in a corner for a year to dry and save a lot of money. But
so Scotty, how many grams is an 80 by 6? I don't even know.
Oh, Jesus. I'll email you. It's a lot. It's a lot. There's more tax in that cigar than there is in that Robusto. Okay? Just in tax. So when people say to me what I do for a living, I say I collect tax.
Yeah.
And that's what we do. We pay the government a fortune. But listen, I want to go back now, Christian, because I want to do a quote. I'm going to do a quote of yours. And I want to talk about, I don't believe companies should exist alone on taking profit, but are responsible to give back to those who rely on to make a profit. So,
yeah, you know,
statement, and it kind of confirms what you were saying earlier on.
Yeah, you know, it's when I look back, my father arrived in Honduras in 1962. My father's been for 2 generations in Honduras, and let's assume with consumption, whatever my father's been involved in that town of Downley, probably has been responsible for circulating, I don't know, 500 million US, right, in all those years. And we still have boys are alcoholics at the age of 13 and 14. Girls have their second or third kid by the time they're 15 and 16. The country hasn't evolved. And we can't just sit here as business people and be inside an environment, seeing all these things happen and not take any responsibility, but not do anything for it. We're not going to fix the problem. But if we can definitely contribute to something and set the example, it's going to help out a lot. You know, originally, my idea with this company was to set up a sports scholarship type program. You know, Honduras has very good football. And what I wanted to do was get scholarships for the kids to come up here and study. And, you know, we had to end that project because we did the factory in Wynwood in Miami, and I brought some Honduran rollers. I had 6 guys. And after like the 4th week, every Monday, 1 guy would be missing. They would find jobs somewhere else. I was like, oh, shit, hold on. All right, that's not going to work. So we got to figure out something else. So then I want to go and I want to do what I can control. And what things I can control is, like I said, you know, we got this breast cancer center that we're helping out. There's a tremendous amount of ignorance in our country. When even I look back in the United States, breast cancer didn't become an issue or a real focus in our country until about 35 years ago. I imagine UK was somewhat similar. So before then, women were highly ignorant with that. So imagine how far behind Honduras. We'll do drives, and we're actually organizing a dinner in Honduras eventually, probably for 21, because we want to buy one of those big mobile testing centers, and those things are like 250,000 US. But we'll do it. We'll figure out a way to do it to help these people out. You know, we're also doing the reforestation program as well, and we're starting the new. Can I say it now, Scott? The whole solar initiative. we're trying to set up the new solar initiative and just figure out things how we can begin to really do it for ourselves and begin to set the example and see how much we can really help people, Scott. You know, of course, this COVID thing has been completely overwhelming, and you know what the best thing we could do, and the only thing that we could control, is protect our workers in the factory, do the right spacing, have the clinics. We already had, if there are 10 steps, we're probably already doing 4 or 5 of them. So it was not too hard for us to do the additional 5 steps, which we always had a disinfection tunnel. We have these sponges that you step on when you come to the building, so you don't bring anything in from the outside. You know, we added a regular temperature checks we have a doctor and a nurse at our building. So not only when you check in, but during the day, she's walking around. She's kind of creepy because you see the workers the rollers are working, all this stuff. She's pointing the stuff at people's face. And, you know, it almost looks like these guys are building microchips or something because everybody's got the face mask, you know, and you know, the headgear, everything. So
How many people is she testing in a day, Christian?
Everybody in that building, I think we have like 65, 70 people. They're testing them every day. We have we set up our own transportation for our workers. And listen, you don't want to get in that van before the van will come in. We'll drop a group of people in. I don't know, 10 people fit at a time. They'll fumigate that thing. It looks like there's a cloud inside. Poor driver, man. He must get high for free every day. I don't know what the hell they spray in there. I think it's that Virkon S product from Bayer. They'll go out, they'll pick up the next batch of people. So we're constantly disinfecting, and to the extent that we haven't had any infections in our factory. Now, I'm not saying that we're not going to, but what I can almost guarantee, not 100%, but I can almost guarantee that infection would not spread within the factory. You know, they have the doctor goes around and also tells them, okay, guys, you know, hour and a half, everybody go wash their hands. So they're doing constant rounds for cleanliness. We have the spacing in the factory. You know, I even got into a whole thing with Sandra, the lady who owns the operation, which goes, oh my God, we need to rent another building and everything. So we had to end up taking another building. We have like two city blocks where we're at. My grandfather owned these properties, so we have them now. So our operation looks big, man. Like if you saw it from the outside, people might think we're making 700 million cigars a year, but really it's just because we spaced everybody out. And but we do what we can control. Now we're gonna have to regroup and see what happens after COVID and see if there are any opportunities for us to help in some way. But you know how it is, Scott. I mean, you see government struggling with it. There's nothing that the private enterprise can do. All we can do is do our part, or more than our part. But to the extent that the Honduran government named us the sample factory for all factories in Honduras, not just cigars, but manufacturing in general. Yeah,
I heard that. I read that. You must be very proud of that.
I am, and proud really of the team. You know, it wasn't me that did it. It wasn't, you know, I wasn't down there, but I am proud of the fact that we had the culture to do it, and we have the culture in our workers so that they know that they have to do it too, and that makes all the difference in the world. If our team knows that they do in fact have to take care, and they're not annoyed by it, because they could have very well left for another factory, but they stayed with us because they feel safer.
Yeah, we've actually got a short video actually of the things that you've just talked about. If Raul, have you got something there? Cool, thank you. That's very good. No, I'd read about the work that you've been doing on this, Christian, and how you are leading the way in the industry. So, well
thank you, sir. Yeah, we ended up donated three, along with my father. We donated 3 of those tunnels to the local hospital. I mean, listen, it's a drop in the bucket. It's almost nothing, but at least it gets done. It gets done, and you know, eventually we'll figure out what else we can do as we begin to pick up the pieces.
Mm-hmm. That's brilliant, mate. Really, really brilliant. So listen, we're getting near to the end. I'm conscious that people have got other things to get on with. I haven't really picked up too many questions in the Zoom chat. I don't know if I've missed them, but you've either just enjoyed listening to us chat, or you're bored, or you've got nothing to say.
Actually,
we have Ricardo in the room, who is, as you know, the Deputy Ambassador to Nicaragua, so I'm glad that you didn't say anything naughty about Nicaragua. So Ricardo would like to ask a couple of questions to you guys, if that's all right.
Go ahead.
Over to you, Ricardo.
Thank you.
By the way,
Thank you so much.
do we need to have people from Nicaragua on this call, man?
Central American. I'll use my Central American hat for that. Thank you. Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you, Paul, for giving me the privilege to be here today and hear and meet Christian, see Christian, which is something I couldn't let the opportunity go by. And Tom, I haven't had the pleasure to meet you in person, but look forward to that opportunity as well. And today, I mentioned, funny you mentioned Dallas. The first time I smoked the Eiroa 20 series was in Plano, just a little bit north of Dallas, in sandals, smoking it next to a pool in the warmest weather of August in Dallas. And I loved it, and I fell in love with it. I genuinely did. That was the first time I tried your cigar. Now I'm here in Kensington in this really terrible summer. I don't even want to call it a summer here in London, what we're experiencing here. Just rain and stopped raining. And I love it just as much, which comes to tell the quality of this cigar. Wherever you are, in Danley, in Dallas, in Kensington, in London, doesn't matter. Its quality, honestly, is incredible. So, you have my greatest respect and my greatest admiration for the work that you do, for the work that you have done. I'm a huge fan, and I really love that. And as a Nicaraguan, doesn't matter, Honduran, it's the same love and respect that I have. And I love the motto, salud, amor y pesetas, lo demás es puñetas, as they would say in Spain. Love, health, and money, everything else is just nonsense. That's a really wise grandparent type of tradition. And on that note, my granddad, an Italian who emigrated and made it to Argentina and then made that to Nicaragua, he told me one thing, and he always said, look, where we are now today, it's obviously the result of our actions. The best actions are the failures in many ways, the ones that teach us the most. And then a compass and an ambition to where I want to go. So he said that sort of mix of the past and the future. So the two core of questions or comments that I had is a little bit looking into the past and in the future. And I'll start with the future part of it. You were talking about something that's something I firmly believe, and I think more generations, more and more, are becoming more sensitive about it. And customers that are coming up the pipeline of future customers and your employees and the family. And it's in terms of sustainability and the use of renewable energy and renewable resources. And one thing I find more and more, the cigar industry, I'm not sure, do you think we are doing, or it's being done as much as possible to really convey the efforts of sustainability that as an industry is being done, say compared to, we have our good friend Mateo, the brand ambassador of Flor de Caña on the call. And Flor de Caña would just now receive a certificate for being carbon neutral. And they have the sustainability degrees and everything. So some industries have been really smart about telling the story of what they do and showcasing what they do for sustainability and renewable resources. So do you think there's an opportunity as an industry, as a company, to be a little bit more vocal and to what the efforts have been done? And do you think that at some point we could be 100% renewable in the industry? So that's thinking of the future. It's something that I wonder if that's in the back of your mind and how that story is being told. And then thinking about the past, and just with that same idea, I mean, you mentioned a little bit about it, but what do you think would be your greatest failure that taught you the most? Either yourself, Tom, or Christian. But what was that thing that said, I really screwed this up, but this is really going to teach me and hopefully has taught you in the future going forward?
Listen, that second list is really long, but unlike normal people, we actually enjoy our mistakes and we laugh at them. I mean, I think they're pretty funny. I remember when we were launching Asylum, the first week we all saw it, but the boxes were 25 count and the stamp on the bottom said 20 count, and we just completely missed it. So listen, mistakes happen all the time. I love them. I get a kick out of them, and so I mean, I could name 100 of these mistakes, and they really have changed our company. The Asylum box itself, when we were coming out ready to launch, I screwed up and I didn't order the hinge machine on time. That's why the Asylum box is the way it is, with a pop-up lid. I was like, oh shit, I didn't order the machine. How am I gonna hinge these boxes? And the cigars were too big just for a slide top box, so I came up with that idea last minute. So it's funny you mentioned the other example about Flor de Caña. You know, I don't know if you knew this or not, but Carlos Pelas was partners with us in Camacho. And Carlos Pela, a great mentor, great friend. I learned a lot from him. He's the owner of Flor de Caña. And I remember he once, and not more than once, he always made it clear that a social responsibility was a big part, was one of their 4 pillars for their business group. I think Grupo Pelas, I think one is obviously profitability, number 2, social responsibility, and whatever. 2 others, I forget the others right now. And always, you know, always clean and no corruption, stuff like that, because, you know, they're very powerful. So I always had that with me. And yes, we could do a lot more as an industry, and not enough is being done. We are a big consumer of cedar wood and wood in general, and inefficiently at it too. You know, none of us, I think only STG has really invested on good technologies for wood, and we'll probably hopefully be the second one as far as how we process the wood. Farms, you know, up to this year, when the COVID stopped, when COVID forced all the production around the world to stop, you understand the weather pattern for El Nino completely changed. So the drought moved all the way down south. So now we actually have rain. But for the past 4 or 5 years, our countries have been suffering from drought. And in our farms, we don't use a lot of water. Tobacco doesn't use that much water, but we use water nonetheless. That's another thing that I'm working on. And it's funny because I keep telling Sandra about these things. She must think I'm absolutely crazy or something. Because the next system that we're working on now, beside the solar, there are these machines that is basically like an air conditioning unit. And what they do is they take the condensation from the air and they produce water. The problem is that they consume a lot of electricity. So that'll be a next step. If we can solve our problems with the solar power at the factory first, we'll be able to now solve the water problem as well. In the meantime, what we've done as far as the water in our operation, you know, we've been able to, we put a reverse osmosis system in the tobacco processing plant, and we've also have a reverse osmosis system in our factory. So you could, you know, I go to Honduras and I do the test myself, and I drink water from the hose, and I don't get sick. You know, I've been away from Honduras for long enough that if they had parasites, it would affect me. So you can drink water from anywhere in our operation. I don't know if you didn't notice, you keep cigars for a long time. Sometimes you get these little, I'm not talking about plume, but you get these white dots. And that's because of the water, the minerals that were in the water when the cigars were being rolled to begin with and when the tobacco was being processed. So we're cleaning the water. We're figuring out a way to now get cleaner water from the air in our operation. But we're very slow to it. You know, for many years, we've been touting this whole Bayer and cleanliness and hygiene. It just hasn't really caught on because we're very antiquated as an industry. It's an industry that doesn't require very much investment. And a lot of Europeans own these factories now, but they go into countries where they stumble onto this culture shock that these people just don't understand the technologies or are very, very slow to pick it up. And I don't know if I can help set the trend. All I can control is what I can control. You know, we are, when you got a lot of Cubans, you know, my people don't like to receive advice from other people. So you kind of have to be very careful in what you suggest. And I want to touch on something, and Nick asked that question. It's a little off subject, but it's kind of like something you mentioned. You know, you smoked that cigar, you really enjoyed it. You know, there are moments, there are cigars that you smoke at the right time that mean so much to you. You know, I could probably remember 10 cigars in my career that I smoked. And one of them was when I went to see one of my visits over to Basel to deal with the guys over at Davidoff. Look at the way these guys work, and Hans Peter was one of them, which, by the way, never take a restaurant recommendation from Hans Peter. So, you know, we went ahead, they picked me up at the airport, they were very nice. But once the meeting was over, it's like, okay, I think the trains start leaving to Zurich at 6 o'clock, so you better get to the train station early. So I remember going to the train station, and, you know, we're not used to taking trains. So I get to the train station like an hour and a half early. There was nobody down there. There was nobody. It was Platz 1 or whatever it was. And I remember I said, I picked up a cigar, and I just finished negotiation. It was a good meeting with these guys, and I smoked the Diploma 1118. That cigar probably has to be the most memorable cigar I've ever smoked. It was like one of those pictures in a poster. There was nobody there. It was just me. I said, all right, let me smoke a cigar right here. Nobody showed up for the whole cigar. It was perfect. As soon as the cigar ended, people just started showing up, and it was it was a moment that I really remember, a very strong moment for me. Sorry, I went completely sidetracked, but I wanted to address that question from Nick.
Yeah,
sorry.
I was going to say, I think one of the things, that, we do, he asks the mistakes, things like that. And obviously, the model of this company is very different from the prior company, where it's not numbers driven, it's not money driven. It's truly to protect the brand and value what we do. So I think that's one of the biggest changes with this company that we made with the prior company. As we talk about the Bayer certification and those things and how the industry will react, I think Christian kind of nailed it on the head. We can only control what we do. But I think what makes that special is we've never done it. Christian and his family have been doing it since I've started. I've been with Christian for almost 19 years now, working with the family between Camacho, Davidoff, and now Asylum CLE. And, what I can say is we've never done any of these things to make ourselves look good. It's truly been because we want to be better. We want to be better for the people. We want to be better for the communities in Honduras, whether it's in Nicaragua or it's our people in the United States. We truly do this because this is what we believe is the right thing to do. We're not doing it for any other reason other than it's the right thing to do, and we have the opportunities to do them. Other companies, whether they do it or not, we have no control over that, but we hope that the example that we're setting can lead to more companies doing these things and really taking a part in protecting the environment and creating safer, cleanlier workspaces for our people in Honduras and Nicaragua, because they are third world countries and they are behind. And to see them develop, it's a proud thing for Christian, I know, and myself to be able to do these things and constantly reinvest in our own business and our own people to better the world that we live in. So I think, again, I don't know if anybody else will catch on or what they're doing, but like Christian said, we can control what we do, and we do that because it's the right thing to do.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My only comment, if I may, very briefly, is I think it's very admirable what you do, and I'm aware of it, and many of us are. So perhaps here, while being very humble about showcasing that, not only physically, but telling the world how you're doing it and educating. I think that's the word, educating the consumers as well, that this is an industry that can be as sustainable and as fair trade as possible, and it has all those elements. But that's something I think something we can all, in a concerted effort, try to help tell more and more the importance of those values that you have. But thank you so much, Christian, and thank you, Tom, and thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
So we have a question in the chat room from Tom. You'd like to ask it? Yep.
Yeah. Hi, Christian. Firstly, congratulations on the cigars. They're all beautiful. That
Thanks.
Colorado wrapper is really something different, something like I've never tried before, really. I love box pressed and I love big ring gauges, so you're a fantastic brand. I wanted to ask, what's it like working with your father?
Do you work with your father?
No, I wouldn't mind, but no, I don't.
Many years ago, I remember my father was dead set against us buying tobacco from abroad. So I snuck in a purchase of wrappers from Indonesia. And son of a bitch, man, my father shows up as the container's pulling in. So I go, oh my God. So I walk into his office and I'm just waiting for it. So he was kind of like, he wasn't complaining. He looks at me, he goes, you know what the problem is? I'm never going to respect you like an employee, and you're never going to respect me like a boss. So if we can have this in mind, I think we're going to do real well working together. So, of course, that don't last so long. But 2 days later, I did something else. He was pissed off at me. It is a tough, very, very tough dynamic. I see it now. I have 3 boys, and even working with my boys now. How could one day, and I think I put myself in my father's position, how could one day one of these numbnut kids come up to me and tell me I'm wrong when I used to change their diapers not so long ago? So yeah, it really is an interesting thing, but you learn to work, and the family dynamic is very different. And I do enjoy working with him. You know, our disagreements were always in the right direction. You know, disagreements were this or that, but at the end of the day, we're discussing how we both thought we were going to make things better. And we never really, you know, the one downside about being in business with family is that that's all you talk about is business. So as you start getting older, and it's kind of it becomes almost frustrating. My father's 82, and you start to realize, I don't know how many of us here still have our fathers and mothers with us, but you start to realize that now your conversations are counted. There are X amount of conversations left. We don't know. And it's extremely upsetting once in a while when the conversation goes south. You're like, man, I can't believe I should have just agreed with my, whatever. You know, you start thinking that dynamic changes, but we have done a good job in the last probably 6-7 years to talk about other things, not only tobacco and work related, but it really took a long time for us to get to that point to develop that kind of relationship. Because otherwise it was only exclusively about cigars, tobacco, boxes, you know, this, that, and you know, that's just the way it is. But it is a good dynamic if you're from. My wife had trouble adjusting to that at first. She goes, "Coño, but you guys, that's all you guys ever talk about." I go, "Yeah, but that's what we like. You know, that's what we do. You know, that's how we built our relationship." So you learn as the years go on. You learn, but it was tough. I didn't want to work with him. I remember my older brother worked with him, and when I was still a teenager, oh my God, I remember they used to fight all the time about all kinds of stuff. And I said, man, I want to avoid my father all I can. But you know, he invited me to come down to work after I worked in this finance company. And I figured, okay, I'm gonna give my father 6 months out of my life. I'll just get over with and come back. And probably the second or third week, I was absolutely in love with the business. I grew up in the farms. I grew up around tobacco, and it was just like a fish in water for me. I felt very comfortable very quickly.
I'm envious because my dad doesn't like cigars, so I can't talk to him about them at all. I tried the 3 cigar trick. So Scott, I didn't just smoke one. This is the last of the 3, and Christian, it's a great idea. I think I'm going to have to start doing it more often.
Which one did you? Which one or ones did you favor?
Well, it's strange because the darker Eiroa goes better with the Asylum, but the Colorado really stands out. So I'm going to go and smoke 4 different Camachos later on after this call.
No, you're
That's
not.
fine. No, you know what the interesting thing?
No, you're not. You're banned.
Listen, that's fine. As long as you're enjoying cigars, that's what matters. But you know the interesting thing is, Corojo has something special, and I think Tom will agree. And even Hans Peter, he's been with us in those massive tastings that I'm telling you, I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, we'll light 25, 30 cigars in one day. The interesting thing about Corojo tobacco, that you'll get home at night after dinner, you will always taste the Corojo. No matter how punished your palate is for that day, you always, the nightcap with a Corojo, nightcap so to speak, with a Corojo, the cigar always stands out, and you never lose any part of that flavor. I don't know, Tom, if you experience the same thing that I do. But
you know, when you're kind of brought back a memory of when we were, you know, one of our trips to Honduras, and you know, we sit there, and again, Christian's telling you we might try 15 or 20, 25 different blends in a day. And we used to have these forms we would sit down and we'd fill out, right? Like the wrapper, the flavors, and all these things. And, you know, and we'd be there late, you know, we'd get there in the morning, and we might be at the fair, might be 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So we had been there for 12, 13 hours. And I remember just filling out one of those forms at the end. And all I put on the form before I handed it to Christian is, I can't taste anything anymore. Like, let's go home, you know, because you were just, you know, you had so many that day. But, you know, people ask the question all the time, like, you know, if you had to pick one cigar or anything, and I don't necessarily say one cigar, but, you know, if there's one tobacco that I had to smoke the rest of my life, you know, I'm partial, obviously, to the authentic Corojo. I came into the cigar industry smoking it, and I, you know, fortunately enough, I'm still in it with Christian and working with his father, and I've been blessed to kind of be mentored by Christian and all the way through this, and you know, to get some of these I told you so's are always very satisfying to me. But you know, it truly is a great tobacco. The flavor, you know, it's just something I can smoke every day. You know, it doesn't overpower me. It doesn't destroy my palate, and it really is enjoyable. And so the Corojo, that authentic Corojo tobacco, is definitely my favorite tobacco. We make a lot of cigars in Nicaragua. I love those too. But if I had to go back to something every single day, it would be the authentic Corojo that we grow in Honduras.
Good. So, listen, we're going to call it a wrap in a second because obviously it's 7:45 here almost in the UK. Tom, 19 years in the industry. Other than spending a day with me in Scotland, what's your high point? What's the high point of your career?
That was a fantastic day in Scotland, Scotty. That event with Robert Graham was really a memorable event that I really enjoyed, that you guys invited us, let us be a part of. And, you know, I really think that, you know, the high point was the beginning of this company, you know, truly to get to take your ideas and your thoughts and concepts and develop them into a brand and something you can be proud of and watch it grow, you know. And I think at one point it was, you know, I can't say the exact point that it hit me, or maybe it hit Christian, but I think that first trade show in Orlando when, you know, we were, you know, we spent the first month on the road driving around, and it was, you know, people kind of hold off on buying before the trade show, and we had some odd experiences on that trip together.
Share the experience, man. Go back a week before with Jeff with cigars, man.
Yeah, so there was a large retailer in Florida who I remember we sat down, and it was myself. We had the Winwood brand at the time. It was Robert Caldwell and Christian. And I had
does he have a Scottish wife?
Yeah, yes. So, you know, I had my cigars in front of me, the Asylum. Robert had Winwood, and Christian had his cigars. And this guy had this giant desk. I won't name names, and he sat above you. And I just remember he looks over at me and Robert Caldwell. He takes our cigars that we put in front of him. He just kind of slides them back in front of us, and he says, you know, I don't build brands. And that was the end of the conversation. And he went right to Christian. I'll take 40 boxes of everything, blah, 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 blah. Christian's laughing at us because we're pissed off. And you know, the whole experience was very humbling. Like, wow, boy, did I screw up here. Like, and then we get to that decision. Yeah. And then we get to the trade show. And, you know, we were very fortunate. You know, we didn't have a great booth space, or we didn't think we did, but we were right next to the bathroom. So we eventually found everybody had to use the bathroom. So everybody came to our booth, and it exploded so quickly. And, you know, Christian looks at me, because originally it was just going to be me and Christian. You know, our goal was to sell 600,000 cigars a year, just me and him, not a big sales team or anything like that. So, you know, we started in July. So, you know, our goal was 300,000 cigars that first 6 months in business, you know, July to the end of December of 2012. And we get to the trade show, and it just truly exploded. Asylum took off, and people were asking about it and ordering it. And I think that was the time that I really could kind of feel some ease in my life to the decision that I made, because it was a little scary, you know, like I said, take a pay cut, come do this, let's, you know, and, you know, again, it was never about the money. It was about being able to build something that we could call our own, and rebuild something that's very tough to do, to come back in an industry after you sell, like for Christian, and rebuild the real brand again. It's very tough to do. And so I think that trade show was the moment we realized, okay, we're going to be okay. And Christian said, let's go start hiring salespeople. And today, you know, we're still growing, and you know, the relationship's always been very good. You know, Christian handles the manufacturing side, and yes, I get to go down and help blend and taste, but I wouldn't put myself as a master blender. I just kind of know what I like and what I'm going for, and he guides me through that. And you know, and I run the sales, right? So the yin and yang of our company is very good. We trust each other to do the things. We work on all these projects together, and even if we don't agree with the idea, we stick with it. And it has really, really worked out, and been a pleasure to again do this with someone who's truly you know, one of my best friends on this planet. And so the whole ride.
Thank you, sir.
But that at the trade show when we were okay, we're gonna be all right, was probably the most scary but gratifying too. Just to know that that people were responding to these ideas and projects that weren't necessarily traditional in our industry, but they've worked out very well for us. So
very, very good. No, thanks for that, Tom. So I'm going to leave the last question for you then, Christian. 25 years in the industry. You had the good fortune to spend 2 days in Nottingham, our UK.
That was brutal, man. That was brutal.
And that was a warm 2 days in Nottingham. People are walking around in T-shirts and shirt sleeves. Christian wore a coat and a scarf and a jacket and everything for 2 full days. And I always remember we went for the industry dinner in the evening. It's supposed to be collar and tie. And I looked across at Christian at the table, and he had his coat on and his scarf on. And, a bit colder than you're used to. So other than spending 2 days in Nottingham, what's been the real high point? What's the little cherry on the top for you, sir?
You know, there've been so many, Scott. I can think of one, really one. And it really has to do with, of course, there are many successes with Camacho, but you go through different stages in your life and your career and where you're at. And I think it had to be February 2017. And it was the end of the month. We had made some real strong decisions. And now, the company is, we're 4.5 years in, and still every month we're gushing money. And because we took the strategy from the beginning, I remember telling Tom, and I said, bro, from day one, no discounts, no credit terms. We protect. Tom's like, you're going to do what? I said, dude, that's exactly how we're going to run the company. Because, Tom is salesman. These salespeople, man, give them 50% off. They'll sell $1 million a day. So full price is a different story. No samples for the salesman. I mean, just different things and we made a real hard decision with one of the big catalog companies because, they were buying product from us, a lot of product. But they, once in a while, they would discount the product. So we make the decision of not to sell to them anymore. And that month was such a rough month because our sales went down dramatically. We were off like 30% that month. But when I sneak and I look at the financial statements at the closing of that month, and we actually made, like a $600 profit, I said, oh my God, man, finally I see the light. Finally, we hit the break-even point. And that was, and I think Tom will tell you, March 2017, I was a completely different person because finally this experiment, this project I knew had taken ground. And, as an adult, my goal behind starting this company is, Tom's kids are the same age as mine, and was to have a future for Tom's boys and my boys and everybody around us. So at that moment, I think I realized that we actually did have a future and the experiment worked. And because, don't get me wrong, man, I was like Tom too. Davidoff was taking very good care of me. They were very nice to us. I too made the decision of leaving them. And more than once, I said, shit, I should have just stayed, man. And because starting a business, I talk about this all the time to people starting business. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be nervous. More than once a week, I would go to bed, sucking my thumb and just completely nervous. Until finally you break out of it and you really begin to build and see a little fruit from what you're doing. So I've had many of these highlights, Scott, and that one has to be the last one. Another big one was now with COVID. I was very happy. We had a call, I think it was on Sunday, March 15th or 16th, whatever that Sunday was. And the world is coming to an end. Tom was on the road. I was on the road. We pulled ourselves out of the road. And we have a conference call on a Sunday night. And I remember telling all of our guys, we have 2 priorities. Number 1, protect our people, protect the health, and nobody loses their job. That was the number 1 thing. And number 2, we protect our brands. And the fact that we didn't know what the bottom was. We didn't know what the future was. We just didn't know what was going on. Nobody knew anywhere in the world. So hold on a second. Joe, I have a door here. When they open, it gets really loud. Sorry about that. So once we started hitting April and May, and we realized that we had made, that the brands actually survived and that everybody was okay and nobody lost their job, that was incredibly rewarding. You know, when you take a position like ours, and we become, sorry guys, we become responsible for so many people. No. When we become responsible for so many people and their salary and their income and their families, it feels really good to be able to be there for them and not disappoint them. You know what I mean? So
no, listen, I think you know, bringing that kind of stuff up, I remember you know, neither myself or Mr. Eiroa here are the best sleepers. So I remember in the beginning of this company, you know, I would get random phone calls at like 2 in the morning because, you know, he's stressed. You know, we're both, you got that feeling of not so much stress, it was good stress, but how do we do this? How do we build it? How do we get it where we need to be? And so we'd always, you know, neither one of us sleep. So he would call at 2 in the morning or whatever time it was. And we'd talk about what we got to do and all that. And, you know, I think now I get a lot less of those calls now. So I know that we're in a much better place.
And Tom would only call me with bad news. So I hated his calls. Yeah, you're not going to believe this, Christian. That's how he would start every. I go, oh, shit, what happened now, man?
Oh, listen, guys, I really want to thank you. You've been good fun tonight, and you've been educational. And I'm sure the guys listening have learnt a lot about your companies, and hopefully it's been in a nice, relaxed manner. I've only had about 4 glasses of whiskey, so I'm okay.
No Jack Daniels?
No, that's from the wrong country. Behave yourself.
Yeah.
No, genuinely, I really want to thank you. I think it's been a really good, fun, relaxed evening. I congratulate you on 25 years, Christian. That's amazing. Tom, 19. Your story is very similar to ours in many, 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 many ways. And I think Jerry will nod his head to that from, we know where we came from in 2012. So there's a lot of similarities between where you guys have come from and where we've come from. So it's nice to hear it, somebody else say it, actually. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So listen, I'll say thank you to everyone for joining us tonight.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thank you.
Paul, thanks very much for allowing us to take over. At what time is it in Czechoslovakia now?
It's almost 9 o'clock. 1 hour difference.
Cool. We got another hour then, guys. Keep going.
Yeah.
So listen, thank you all very, very much. And yeah.
All right. Much appreciated. Thanks everyone for joining, and see you same time next week for Alec Bradley.
Thank you for having us, guys. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone.